All right, and I think we're live once again. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining in. It's the live show, the Nourishing Greatness Lunch and Learn that we have. Today's guest is Dave Snyder, and we'll be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about something unique. We're going to be talking about eBay optimization. Now, I know Dave had a slide presentation. Oops, we got to turn that off. So I think Dave has a slide presentation. Unfortunately, due to bandwidth constraints, we weren't able to really have it running during the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to go put the slide deck into the post that I made on the DMO. So all you have to do is just log into the DMO. You'll see the post from our Lunch and Learn today, and then you can just download the PDF from there. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, Dave Snyder. Dave, how's it going today, buddy?
I am doing well. It's been a busy week, so hopefully my voice isn't too hoarse because I've been doing consultations all week, which I don't usually do. But it's just been one of those weeks. But good day.
Nice.
I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, I think everyone is probably used to doing regular SEO on Google or Yahoo, if you dare do that, right. Or Bing. So this is a really interesting topic, something that I'm interested in. I mean, I don't normally post anything on eBay, but I know that due to some of the categorization stuff that they have, that this is a really interesting topic for some people. And yeah, it's great to have you on the show, and would love to just kind of learn from you and try to understand what's going on.
So there's a lot of places that we could start, but I think that the best place to start is to just kind of give a basic kind of background in terms of what we do, how we got to this point of doing this, and why eBay is so important. So my wife started selling on eBay in 2009, and the following year we developed some relationships with some wholesalers. And at that point, I began to apply my existing knowledge, fairly limited at the time, of SEO to eBay listings. I just kind of asked myself, I wonder if it's possible to optimize an eBay listing, because we wanted to make these legitimate drop shipping listings the best that they could be. So there's a difference between traditional legit drop shipping and what is oftentimes viewed as drop shipping on YouTube, which is actually online arbitrage and is banned by the eBay platform. So it's not something you want to get involved in where there's a transaction taking place simultaneously on some other platform, and it's connected by software. So the shipper doesn't actually know that they're selling to anyone other than, they don't know that there's a middleman. And so I've actually seen instances where a seller on eBay who also sells on Amazon is competing against 10 other listings that are simply duplicates of his own Amazon listing. Okay, 10 listings on eBay. And those listings, when the Amazon seller ships the item, they don't know that they're shipping it to someone who actually bought it on eBay. It's very problematic for eBay. Fortunately, eBay has banned it from the platform. People still do it. But we were doing legit, where we had an actual relationship with a wholesaler. We'd exchanged tax IDs. And so for 3 years, I spent studying, testing, how could this be done? And by 2013, I was doing freelance eBay SEO consulting. And then last year, we finally got to the point where we released our agency site. And so I'm fairly new to the marketing arena in terms of getting the name out there, because I didn't want to do this without having a site that I could point people to the content that we provide. But from most marketers, and definitely most marketers, and for the most part, most SEOs, we're only talking about Google, okay? We're not talking about eBay. And so I wanted to go through a few kind of facts about eBay that, if you've got an open mind, may intrigue you in terms of actually working as, if you do SEO, doing it for specifically for eBay. So 40%, I was going through some stats about eBay. And well, before we get to that, let's go to the first one, which is most of the time, I was just reading an article this week in some major publication like Forbes. and they referred to eBay as an auction site. And they continue to be called an auction site. eBay has not been a legitimate auction site since 2008. In 2009, it was half auctions and half fixed price listings. Now, the last measurement I've seen was the last quarter of 2018. It was 89% fixed price, 11% auctions. So the vast majority of what sells on the platform is in the buy it now format, just like you would buy anywhere else. So this notion that eBay is an auction site, it just has stuck with it, but it's not an auction site. And when you talk to people, they'll say just about everybody knows someone who sells on eBay.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I know this guy who sells, designer jeans, or I know someone who does retail arbitrage. They go and they buy stuff on clearance and then sell it, or they do flipping from thrifting or from estate sales. That's actually how we got our start, was doing that. Yep. And a lot of people who sell on eBay, that's what they do. That's not who we're talking about when we're talking about working as an SEO. You're not working with moms and pops. The vast majority of actual sellers on eBay are regular commodity sellers that you'd see anywhere. Big box sellers like Patagonia, North Face, Overstock, Wayfair, Barnes & Noble, Best Buy, they all have eBay stores. I just bought some packaging tape from Office Depot, but I bought it through eBay because the Office Depot has an eBay store. So we buy all of our packing supplies on eBay because it tends to be a lot more inexpensive than anywhere else. So this idea that like 81% of what sells on the platform is in new condition. So it's not an antique. It's not some vintage T-shirt. It's not one of the many things that people associate with eBay. It's the connotation. So you have to get your mind out of that and move into actual what eBay actually is. So it's in the top 3 of the largest online marketplaces in the world. 40% of Americans use eBay. Let me grab some other stats here, make sure I get these correct. I can't remember all of them.
Now, I have a quick question for you, Dave. Now,
yeah.
are these companies using eBay as a way to get rid of like discontinued items or something that they just want to kind of like move faster, like overstock or something like that? What's the primary use for like a Patagonia or another store, I don't know, Best Buy or something, to have an eBay store? Is it just another channel for them, or what are they primarily using it for?
Yeah. Some of them use it for overstock. I know Patagonia and North Face, those are both returns that they're selling on eBay.
Okay.
But Best Buy, Barnes & Noble, Target used to be on eBay. They're still on eBay Australia. Most of them are just selling their regular inventory. They're not selling overstock. So again, our clients never are selling overstock. In fact, if I talk to someone about the possibility of doing that, generally I advise them not to do that, because eBay's not necessarily eBay's great for selling things that don't have a box. It's great for selling like watches, for example, watches without the manual, watches without the original container.
Right.
Those sell quite well on eBay. But the vast majority of what sells on eBay is just regular new condition inventory like anywhere else. We're working with a seller right now of they sell auto body repair products. And they're just selling the same stuff they sell on their website. These aren't returns. These aren't some form of overstock, and they do most of their business on eBay. And I was going to show a nice little slide there where they literally in a span of 3 months went from 6,000 product listings on a monthly basis. They were grossing about 175,000, and then by the end of the 90-day period with us working with them, they're almost 300,000 per month. Most of the sellers that we're working with are at least grossing $1 million a year. I mean,
Wow.
Occasionally we work with someone who's doing, just kind of selling stuff. I just consulted yesterday a young guy who sells model airplanes. I don't know what his gross income is, but when we work with someone on a hands-on basis, and we've got an hourly arrangement with them, there are certain prerequisites that they have to qualify for, and these aren't going to be. This isn't what eBay is traditionally associated with, but the most successful businesses on eBay are simply selling on eBay what they sell on Amazon, what they sell on their website. They're not using eBay as some kind of extra channel. They're literally our demographic client. Like our typical client is someone who sells on their website, probably have an SEO for their website. They're most definitely selling on Amazon, and then they're selling on other platforms, including eBay. They're not necessarily like a hardcore eBay seller. And most of them don't realize that eBay can do much better if you actually optimize the listings for search visibility.
Okay, cool.
So, I can give you some other statistics, but, we've got 107 million US monthly unique visitors, 174 million global buyers, Q1 2020, eBay GMV, which is gross merchandise volume, of 21.3 billion in the last quarter. So GMV's been having some issues over the last few years, but it's been fairly steady. And I see a lot of hope for the company moving forward because of a number of things, including they've got a new CEO that I think is going to take them in the right direction. So a couple little known facts about eBay. eBay was the first company to launch an open API. That was in 2000. They were one of the original members of the Open API initiative. And, conspicuously, Amazon is not part of that because Amazon's data is not terribly open, especially compared to eBay. eBay makes everything open. It's fairly common for eBay to use some kind of software that's very popular in the tech community, buy the company, and then immediately outsource that software. They've got a tremendous relationship with the open source software community. They've created their own water-cooled rack system. They actually worked with Dell to do this, so that they've got several lead qualifying data centers out west, and so they do a lot in the tech. They got a great developer network. They do a lot in the area of tech that no one pays any attention to, but they are the underpinnings of eBay's current search engine, which is called Cassini. And eBay's awarded about 6 to 10 patents a week, and at least one, sometimes two of them are clearly search related. So I'm reading a patent or two a week, and we learn a great deal about search on eBay from those patents. And the advanced technique I wanted to show you, but I think we can talk about it fairly well in today's conversation. It ties into a technology known as search index trimming, which is where eBay effectively reduces the size of their search index to make it more manageable to their buyers. One of the historical problems with eBay is that their data is unstructured, and so the Amazon will not let you sell anything without some kind of product identifier, like a UPC or a manufacturer's part number. Okay, on eBay you don't have to have any of that, and in fact, historically, sellers have just not even bothered with them, which has caused a great problem. And eBay built out what they called their product-based shopping experience, and they actually had developed these, what they called them buy boxes. Unfortunately, what they call their habituated buyers didn't respond well to them, and so it was a failure. But it was the idea was that if you're going to sell, Captain America Funko Pop dolls, that the the web page is going to be developed around that one product, and then it's going to filter the different sellers by condition, perhaps by price, by location, etc. And then you choose from that one page, devoted product page, not devoted to the actual seller, but to the product itself. That framework didn't work well on eBay. And the purpose, though, of it was to make listings more manageable. When you go to eBay and you search something, you just scroll and scroll and scroll. And that's been the search results page on eBay, the SERP, for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And eBay calls that the river internally, that long list of listings, they call that the river. And in order to make it more manageable, so that if I'm looking for a specific iPhone, I'm not just scrolling endless pages trying to find the one I want, that I can kind of narrow it down a bit better. So the process that eBay is using to do that is what I want to talk about in a few minutes, which is called search index trimming. But the importance of SEO on eBay is kind of two main things. One is that it fully accesses buyer search and intent, as opposed to what sellers think their buyers are searching. I get this all the time from sellers, that they will tell me what they know their buyers are searching. And then we go and we look at the data and we find out your buyers are searching something else entirely.
Right.
And so there's a great tool. It's called Keyword Tool Dominator, and it'll give you access to eBay's autocomplete database, which is similar to Google autocomplete. And that's based on what people actually are searching. And so the conventional wisdom within eBay is that you're going to look at other listings and obtain, keywords from listings that rank well. The problem with that is you don't know which of those keywords have actually helped that listing to rank. And if they're not being searched, it's not going to help you to use that term. eBay actually bought a tool called Terapeak, which is a keyword tool that gets its keywords from listings that rank well on eBay and web pages that rank well in Google, which is unheard of in SEO. Okay, SEO is all about buyer intent. What is the buyer looking for, and how does the buyer get to what they're looking for? And that involves the usage of keywords. So it's tremendously important that your buyers, we see this all the time with clients where we're working with a seller of metal detectors, and they had these long-range detectors that could see up to like half a mile underground, and they ranged. The cheap ones are like $2,000. The expensive ones are between $9,000 and $10,000, and they sell fairly steadily on eBay. We saw a significant increase once their listings had been optimized. I think a 90-day increase in total gross sales was between 30 and 40%.
That's a really niche product too, like that's not something that everyone's going to be buying.
Exactly. And they do sell the beachcombers. They do sell the, but their primary products are the high-end, very high-end metal detectors. And you wouldn't think you could buy those on eBay. You'd think that you'd only be buying either a used one or someone that, whatever. No, this is, it's a full-blown market like every other niche market on eBay. So so one of the terms for this long-range product is geolocator, and we've got an algorithm that actually analyzes keyword usage based on several factors. Two of its main factors are how often it's searched and how frequently your competitors are using it. So as opposed to using terms that your competitors are all using, we prefer terms that your competitors aren't using, that your buyers are. Right. And so our past client dominates. If you just type in geolocator into eBay, our past client dominates that page. There aren't a lot of listings there because these products are so niche. But that that page, and so we're more interested in what we call search page domination as opposed to top search rankings. Top search rankings on eBay is a total myth. And it's completely unnecessary to improve your metrics and ultimately improve your sales. So secondary to keyword research, keyword data is structured data. And complying with structured data, eBay's very particular internal structured data framework, not its, not the schema markup that they use to show up in Google, but rather the eBay's taxonomy, which is its category structure, combined with the item aspects or item specifics that flow from that. So if you choose that you're selling men's t-shirts would be the category, and then the item specifics would be things like color, material, size, etc. So the way in which you determine the category is where everything comes together. And what's happening is that eBay is filtering to a single category when you search any given phrase. And
wow, that's interesting.
So if you search the phrase, and this is search index trimming in a nutshell. I want to make sure I didn't skip anything. So the two purposes, before we just get into the nitty gritty of this, the two purposes of eBay SEO are to increase search visibility and to decrease search displacement. So search visibility is fairly obvious. We want your listing to appear more frequently when people are looking for it. Right. And so that's kind of three main places. One would be the traditional eBay SERP, the search engine results page. The second would be what they call structured data browse pages, which are specifically created category pages that have been pushed out to Google to increase inbound organic traffic to the platform.
You mean they're black hat pages that they created?
So you're familiar with that?
Well, I mean, what was it? Didn't they call it like the BHP directory or something?
Yeah.
Way to go, guys. Perfect name.
Exactly. Do you remember when you first heard about that?
Oh, it was years ago. I think it was like maybe 5 or maybe more. I'm not really sure. I just remember, and I was laughing my ass off for a good week. I was just like,
okay.
They seriously called it BHP. Like, come on. Like, and you know what's interesting too is I've talked to some of the eBay, just a segue for a minute. I've talked to some of the eBay guys, and you know, it seems like repetitively they push the envelope or the bar with Google. So if you look at their search, their SEO visibility over time, right, it's always like going up, and then manual penalty going down, and then going up, manual penalty going down. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing if they're writing that really, you know, fine line of what is and what isn't acceptable inside Google, because ultimately they're going to wind up at a higher level and potentially sell a lot more products when they're on the upswing, especially if it's during like the holiday season, right? So it's a good tactic from my advantage. The only downfall would be is if Google has finally just said, well, you know what, we're just going to de-index you forever. You've gone too many penalties and we're sick of it. But yeah, I mean, it works. It totally works.
Well, I would argue that it doesn't. And the reason why I kind of hesitate, you know, I said that over the last few years, GMV has kind of had its issues. I've written publicly that I believe that is tied in directly to the black hat pages that were rolled out in May. Well, they were discovered in May of 2014. They were rolled out over a period of years prior to that.
Yeah, I've actually got it right here. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can share this. Application window. We want to do Chrome.
Are you talking about, are we talking about Danny Sullivan's article on Search Engine Journal or something else?
No, I'm talking about.
Okay.
So I don't know. Can you see the screen where it's got So it's right in line for what you're saying. So in May 2014.
That's it.
the little trumpet wah wah wah
Yeah.
played. That's so great.
And the problem here is that the long-term effects of black hat techniques, and we can disagree on this perhaps, but we stay as far away from that as we can. Like we don't, like we are not actually, I don't consider myself a marketer. I consider myself an analyst. And that's all I spend my time doing is analyzing. And then I like to share with people what I've analyzed, and some of it's interesting to people and some of it isn't at all.
Right.
If I try to talk to my dad about it, he just kind of looks at me.
Shut up, but Dave. Told you not to talk about that crap anymore.
It's great because I like to joke with him about it because, I know he's like, boy, that sounds great. I have no idea what you're talking about. But so I wrote, the last article I wrote for List Rank Sell is called Hope for eBay's Future and the End of the BHP Subdirectory. And it took eBay 6 years to take that down. Okay. And what they should have done is they should have taken the directory down, but they didn't. What they did is they spread out these black hat pages to other 3-letter subdirectories, a lot of them. And then what they did is, and then those same folders would contain a lot of other kinds of pages. I mean, it's kind of Webmaster 101 is that every subdirectory needs to contain the same kinds of pages. Right? So you've got a blog subfolder. You've got, we have a learn subfolder, which is our learning center, etc. Everything within that folder is the same thing. Right. And it makes it very easy for Google to understand what it is. And it just makes sense. I mean, it's just kind of common sense. But anyways, the fallout of this whole deal is that eBay product listings still do terribly in the natural search index. So they managed to get some inbound traffic through paid ads. Some of the structured data category pages, and I'm talking about the authentic ones, are doing fairly well in the natural search index. But the product listings are still pretty much invisible. They're so deep down in search. And I don't know what would have happened if eBay had taken the pages down immediately. And I followed this, every earnings call. I detailed notes as to what they admitted to, what they talked about, what they didn't. By April of 2016, Devin Wedding was finally saying, yes, we received a penalty because there was all this. The press picked it up as an algorithm change. Within a month's time, every time it was ever mentioned, it was referred to as an algorithm change. It was not Panda. It was a penalty. It was a manual action penalty. Right. And Danny Sullivan in July of 2014 wrote that kind of the definitive article on that. A lot of people got in on it. People like Larry Kim, Pete Myers, and others wrote articles about it. But I don't spend a lot of time on this now, but I had to write the kind of follow-up. I wrote an open letter to Devin Wedding about a year ago. In fact, when I opened the blog, it was like my big statement. My wife's saying, "Are you sure you want to open the blog with that?" I'm like, "Yes,
sure do.
This is the statement I need to make, which is take down what they called the SEO pages. Just take them down." Because the process that they were going to put into place was they were going to take them down as they put up legit pages, which and there's a lot more to it that is just kind of would be speculation that I don't talk about publicly because it's just there's possibilities of this and this and this, and that's not where I want to go. But the bottom line is that I'm convinced they could be doing much, much better if they had not just stayed away from it. They had a number of ways in which product listings were doing fairly well in search before these pages were ever created. And whether that boost, how much of that had to do with these pages and how much it didn't, I don't know. But there was even a time I can remember when you'd go to eBay, go to Google, you'd search for something and it would bring you to a search engine results page on eBay that had nothing to do with what you'd searched on Google, but it looked like a product page on Google.
Right.
I mean, they were doing crazy stuff. There's no way that those searches converted, right? So, bottom line is we don't primarily optimize for Google because the inbound traffic, 70% of the traffic is starting on site. What's that remaining 30% makes up everything from paid search, which is huge for eBay. That's Google Shopping. Google Shopping really hasn't been influenced by this, but the natural search index most certainly has. So what eBay has done to kind of combat this issue of this glut of inventory that they have in their site, to make it more manageable for buyers, is to effectively reduce the size of the search index. So if you go to eBay and you type in Darth Vader figure, there's no way you can do that on your end, and I can kind of show it. Is there a way to do that? You want to try that?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do this because, okay, just open up an eBay page.
Okay, hold on.
Just open up the eBay homepage. All right, I appreciate it. I don't know what the issue is on our end, but I think it's clearly
just doesn't like two things at once. It's just like I can't handle it. It's too much. So let's see if I can add this without causing a bajillion things. So let's go. Okay, so can you see the eBay page now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. So let's just type in Darth Vader figure to the search bar.
Figure. Got it.
Okay.
So many.
So if you take a look at the total results there, is that 8,700? I can't quite make it out.
Yeah, it's 8,724.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the number of the 8,700 number. There is the number of Darth Vader figures that are categorized as toys.
Okay.
Okay. So you'll see that at the top left, TV, movie, and video games is under action figures, which is under toys and hobbies. Okay. So if you have your Darth Vader figure, and if you put vintage Darth Vader figure, it'll still pull up this same category.
Okay.
And go ahead and test it because I tested it yesterday, but it should do the same thing. If you put in vintage Darth Vader figure, I would probably categorize a vintage one as a collectible. Okay,
which
and
collect somewhat down here, but
right, but the only category that's being shown to you right now is the TV, movies, and video games category. Now you can click on a different category, but you're not seeing those listings. So let's click on all at the top, if you would, under categories.
Okay.
And we'll see. Okay, and now remove the term vintage, if you would.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Bam.
Okay, so now we've got 14,000 some listings.
Yep.
So there's literally 6,000 listings that are invisible from search that have the phrase Darth Vader figure in the title that are not appearing when you search the phrase Darth Vader figure. Now this isn't
interesting. Very interesting. So they're totally screwing themselves.
Well, so this is, so I'm going to be very clear. This is a natural. This has to do with the concept of entity, and entities and SEO. Is something that's heavily misunderstood. But in some cases, it's problematic for sellers. But this is not some kind of conspiracy. This is a natural function of marketplace search. The idea that you can apply a filter. If you click on Kenner as the brand, you're only going to see listings that are showing Kenner.
Right.
The difference, and so then everything else is suddenly invisible from search. It's just not there. The only difference here is that eBay's doing this automatically, and most buyers don't play around with the categories they simply assume, oh, there's this many listings for sale on eBay. I've yet to talk to a seller who knows anything about this. Hasn't happened.
The default user behavior is just going to be like, oh, look, it's Darth Vader. Okay, I'm going to start scrolling through. You know what I mean? Like, this is exactly what I was looking for, Darth Vader stuff. And maybe I'm looking for this one, this pop guy. Or maybe I'm looking for, Darth Vader with a badass cape. Who knows? But I'm going to see it in here, and I'm going to just completely ignore the fact that there's these other hidden searches or results that I'll never be privy to, right?
Right. So kind of the main reason why they do this. So this all revolves around this concept of entity. So an entity is what something is. I have not heard. The only guy I've listened to who really explains this well is Bill Slawski. And he does a fabulous job of explaining this. And one of the vice presidents, Ron Knapp, vice president of structured data and SEO at eBay, last year at eBay Open, used this analogy. And he simply said, a shoe is a shoe regardless of what you place it in a taxonomy. And what the idea is if I'm wearing a pair of Nikes, got this favorite pair of all black Nikes. If I can describe those as sneakers, I can describe those as gym shoes. In the UK, they call them trainers. Okay. On eBay, I can categorize them as athletic shoes. I can also put shoes under sporting goods. Yep. Okay. But regardless of what category I place them in, and regardless of what keyword I use to describe them, what they are never changes. And that's what an entity is. An entity is what something is. So the entity is simply shoes.
The physical description of an object regarding it itself, not what it could be construed as, right? Same thing as like underwear, boxers, knickers, like but they're still the same thing. It's all underwear.
Right. So, exactly. Exactly. And so that's where all search is moving, is to, so that Google's not giving you different results for gym shoes and sneakers, that it understands that they mean the same thing. That's where it's headed.
Right.
Okay. That's where it's headed.
Same thing with people using Coke. I want a Coke. Okay. I want pop. I want soda.
Right.
It's the same thing, right?
Right.
And when I say Coke, it doesn't mean I necessarily want a Coke. I want a soft drink, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I totally get it.
Right. So, and it gets really, so in e-commerce, the part of this gets very confusing is that the term you might typically use to describe something may not be what it is in its essence. So I had this little screen that said, what is a tea set? Okay. The phrase tea set implies drinkware, something that you probably use on a fairly regular basis, something that you have around the home.
I use tea sets all the time.
Right. Okay. Now, bone china tea set, that's probably a collectible, something that sits on a shelf that you only bring out, when someone important comes or something.
The president.
Not
our current president, maybe. We don't want him to come over for tea because he's not going to wear a COVID mask. That's for sure. The China. What did he call it yesterday? He was here yesterday in Arizona. He was like, the China virus. And I was like, really? The China virus? That's what you're going to call it now? How about you just call it COVID, bro?
Oh, he's been doing that for a long time. And
so great. Terrible. So great.
If let's say you put the term child in front of tea set, now it's probably not really a tea set at all. It's a toy. Right? Yep. That you're not going to be drinking tea out of. It's probably water if you're drinking anything, or just pretend. So what something is at its essence, in order to do this testing that I was showing you, you have to really work sometimes at determining what eBay is thinking it is. So one of the examples is bar sign versus neon bar sign. So a client an acquaintance that sells these, and we talked about this at length not that long ago, and we were looking at various examples. And these bar signs, maybe they've got a beer company on them or some slogan, might have something to do with a pool table or whatever. But it's something that you hang up in a bar. There's a whole category under Breweriana. I can't pronounce that. But there's a whole category underneath that. That stuff for a brewery, right? Or something that you'd hang up in a bar. But the actual back-end category, so search index trimming, which reduces the size of the index, does so, it filters down to what another patent refers to as the back-end category. So the back-end category is what? So, okay, first, the front-end category is what the seller categorizes it as. And that could actually be two categories. The back-end category is what eBay says it is, how eBay interprets that phrase. And it's all phrase dependent. This is extremely important to understand, is that you can just change one word sometimes not at all. It doesn't change, but bar sign goes under home decor, walls and plaques. Neon bar sign goes under collectibles, neon signs. So even if the neon sign's brand new, you're going to put it under collectibles because that's the back-end category for the entity, what it is.
Right.
So changing sometimes one word can, and sometimes brand actually influences this category. This automotive company we're working with sells pretty much anything you could use to repair a vehicle, mainly the body of the vehicle. And impact wrenches, there's a subcategory for impact wrenches in business and industrial, and one in eBay Motors. If you just put impact wrench into eBay, the category that pulls up is the business and industrial category. But if you type in AirCat impact wrench, which is traditionally associated with automotive products, now it's the impact wrench within eBay Motors. And one of the problems is if you list something in eBay Motors, in order to move it to a different category, you have to end the listing. And that's the worst thing you can do for SEO. It's a traditional so-called SEO technique in the eBay community that you manually end and relist what they call stale listings. And I did an article, posted a blog post on the myth of this, that they're actually, listings do not grow stale over time. If they became stale, they were stale to begin with. And this idea that if something, just sheer time on site on eBay equates this idea that it's gone, it's not selling well. It's not selling well because it was on the site too long. Okay, nothing to do with the condition of the listing, the market that the listing's in, nothing. It's just stale listing. And the whole concept of stale listing goes back to the beginning of eBay when it's primarily auctions. And auctions were considered fresh. And when buy it now, fixed price became more popular, started to become more popular, the hardcore fans would describe those listings as stale, had the potential to become stale, because the auctions were always turning over all the time and were fresh listings. Right. So that whole concept of stale listings, stale eBay listing, you can search that in Google, you'll see articles, videos left and right about that subject. Am I turning on and off here?
No, you should be fine.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
You can. Okay. All right.
I can hear you.
Good. Because I see myself spinning and I'm hoping I'm not disappearing. So determining the entity on eBay is as critical to making sure that you have it in the right category, and just making changes to category we're seeing massive improvements in this particular seller. In fact, those numbers I gave you earlier on for them, I think it's like 135 to close to 300,000 a month. That is based, the only work we had done prior to that was, for the most part, changing the category. Like this, it's a very granular process. It's because each one has to be tested. So you have to determine, okay, all the impact wrenches need to go in this category. All of the hammers, there's like this curved head hammer thing. Each one of those has to be identified as to what it is. And that's actually something I see in e-commerce, especially in an example with this young fella I talked to yesterday. He was selling the airplane model kits, but he didn't have airplane model kit in his title. So he had like what airplane it was modeled after. He had what the design was. He had the size ratio, all these different specs, but he didn't actually say in the title what it was, which is problematic because people search by model airplane kit. Right. And they're not finding him because he's not doing that. And so sometimes determining what something is, notice these hydraulic cylinders. Everywhere we looked on the internet, no one's using the term hydraulic cylinder anywhere. We had to figure out what it was, so they're showing the brand, they're showing the model, and then they're showing all of this specification data, but they're not actually saying what the item is. That's a very common problem for e-commerce sellers in general, is failing to identify what it is and making sure that term is in their title.
So it's almost like a kind of like a trifecta thing, right? So you have to have the category right, you have to have the keyword or terminology right, and you also have to have a descriptor that could contain the other keywords that this thing might be under, right? The model, the part number, the whatever. So all of those things in conjunction have to function as one unified thing in order for your listing to show up correctly, right? And then so the real question is like, if Patagonia or one of these other companies doesn't have someone who's actively doing this, they could just be, well, I don't want to say they're throwing their money away, but I mean, maybe they're just wasting an immense amount of time, right? Which I guess equates to money anyways. But
yes,
that's crazy.
Sure. And because the assumption, if people even talk about marketplace SEO, which is working with an individual seller account on a marketplace, so the search engine that we're talking about is Cassini, eBay search engine, not Google. If they ever talk about that, we're talking about Amazon. And there's plenty of people doing Amazon SEO. In fact, I think you were on Marketplace Blueprints podcast in January, if I saw that correctly.
Maybe.
And Marketplace Blueprint does Amazon SEO. And so there's a fairly robust number of people doing that, but lots of articles on Search Engine Journal about Amazon SEO, not eBay SEO. And it's the reason why it took me so long to develop the process is because I had to test everything that I was being told. Is this true? Is this not true? A lot of people will tell you, so that we haven't even talked about the item description, right? The actual content of the listing. And the reason why we haven't talked about that is because it's practically irrelevant to SEO. It's important for conversion. So if it's a lousy description, it's not going to convert well. But from a search visibility point of view, if all you did was build out your content of your listings, it would have no impact on your search rankings. None. And I'm told that's not right. So it's really very title dependent in terms of keywords. And that's in writing. And I've seen that from the eBay Tech blog where they talked about eBay's default algorithm, which is called best match. And that it's still very demonstrably dependent. And I think marketplace search in general is still kind of like this on exact match keywords. So differences like mini and miniature aren't, you're going to have both in the title if you want to appear for both. It didn't used to be, it's gotten better than it used to be. Cassini's much better at determining like singulars and plurals meaning the same thing. A lot of brand names like AT&T, ATT, it knows that those are the same thing. But I can still prove this again and again and again that if the difference in the word choice, wood, wooden, they mean virtually the same thing, figure, figurine. But if I don't if I don't use the one term, I won't appear for those searches.
Now, what about like the actual seller itself? So, like, obviously, they're looking at titles and probably not descriptions, based off of what you're saying. But are they looking at like the seller, right? So, like the score that the seller has, like how much influence does that have too? Or like how many items have I sold? Whatever. I'm sure that they've got to be using that stuff to somehow like raise the ranking for those items versus someone else who's just starting off, right?
So this conversation kind of assumes that the seller's already got the best practices in place and they're not out of policy compliance, because breaking eBay policy is a major impact on what they call their quality score. So the listings each themselves have a quality score. The sellers also have a quality score, an overall quality score.
Right.
And that impacts your ability to rank. So, more than half the time when we start working with a client, they've got at least one major policy violation. Within the last 6 months, we had 2 different sellers that had carefully crafted duplicate listings in order to try and boost their search visibility. Great idea. It's not a great idea. It's a terrible idea. And so literally what happened is that in both cases, we significantly reduced the size of their inventory, because the first thing we did was go through and get rid of their duplicate listings. And for one, that wasn't, and then the listings that are remaining, you optimize those. Both of them had tremendous responses in sales because we brought them into policy compliance. I've actually seen in one case where a client's listings were removed from the index. The store was still live, the listings were still active, but you couldn't find a single listing in the index anywhere. They were all using their proprietary brand name, and you could not find their brand name in search. And because it was one very specific, vertical specific policy violation that they had in place, and that levels you. So definitely, being top rated is by no means going to guarantee you search rankings. That's what they say, but it's not true. Free shipping, not necessarily. If it's expected in your category, then yeah, you're going to want to do that, but more from a conversion point of view than a search point of view.
Right.
But sheer sales velocity, just the sheer number of sales, combined with your sales conversion rate. But if something just sells really well, it will rank well, even if it's garbage. It will rank well. And I think that's pretty much anywhere is the case. Marketplaces love stuff that sells.
Right.
So,
and probably that's less competitive stuff too, right? Like it's probably just easier, right? There's just not as many people competing for the object or the item. So it's just easier for them to pop up. I mean, assuming that they got everything else right.
Well, yeah. So all else being equal, if you have 10 products that are the same and 2 of them sell well, they will rank above the others.
Right.
Like they have a sales history. And that's one of the things that when you end a listing, you lose all that. Okay, so you never want to end a listing unless you never plan on bringing it back, because you will lose all of its engagement, and sales history is by far the most important aspect to that. One thing I want to make sure I mention is that following category choice is the item specifics. Okay, and those, as you complete those, additionally, you'll actually see what eBay calls their lightning gauge for a lot of listings. And as you complete more of those fields that are aspects of the listing itself, like in a shirt would be color, material, size, etc. As you give eBay more of the information, which is helping eBay to structure its data, which is a good thing, you will access more search behavior. Okay, right. So because 80% of all sales, all transactions involve at least one filter utilized by the buyer. So instead of, if I'm looking for this shirt, instead of typing in the word black, I may just filter by the color black.
Right.
And so, for that reason, short tail converts better on a marketplace than it does in a traditional search engine like Google, because you can filter the search using the faceted navigation along the left-hand side of the page. So that, the one thing I'll say about item specifics that people have to know is do not type in your own unless you absolutely can't choose one of eBay's.
Interesting.
You have to use what eBay gives you. A case in point, The young fellow I was talking to yesterday, he had in his ratio, the size ratio, he was using 1/144. eBay's drop-down fields use a colon instead of the slash. So you have to. A lot of people just type in their own stuff. Invariably, that's going to mean that if someone filters by the 1:144, his listing is not going to appear. And so that's displacement in a nutshell. Is the application of a filter, whether it's by the buyer or whether it's by eBay itself, results in search displacement. And that's, again, that's a natural function of marketplace search. Faceted navigation, the left-hand nav, doesn't exist in a traditional search engine. Right. But it presents all kinds of challenges and opportunities for people who know what they're doing. And it's a whole thing to itself. I could do a series on faceted navigation because it's just so, the way it impacts marketplace search is tremendous.
Well, we are coming up to almost an hour. I'm sure that everyone is floored by all of this great information. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming on today. I think that it's a great topic. It's something that isn't really spoken about in our industry. Right. And I think that it opens up a lot of doors and thought processes behind not only eBay, optimization, but also, when you're thinking about maybe how Google operates in the back end as well. So thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it. Why don't you give a shout out if people want to connect with you? Why don't you give them like your LinkedIn profile or your domain name? And thank you for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
You bet. So the website is listranksell.com. LISTRANKS as in Sam, ELL.com. Twitter handle is the same, ListRankSell. You can find my personal LinkedIn profile and Twitter account through the About page on ListRankSell. But that's where the content is primarily exists. We continue to build out content that you're not going to find anywhere else because this is just not something people are talking about. And if they are, they're like a veteran eBay seller who thinks they know a bit of SEO. And we're an SEO agency first that focuses on eBay.
Nice. And one thing I want to mention too, Dave does have the slides that we'll be attaching to the post inside the Digital Marketers Organization. So if you guys are watching this and you're looking for it, that's where it's going to be, is on the post for this Nourishing Greatness Lunch and Learn that we had today. So Dave, once again, thank you so much for joining us today and kind of spreading the knowledge that you have on eBay. We really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you some more about this stuff. So thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate it today and look forward to you attending the next Nourishing Greatness.